So welcome to Module 3, Scrum Overview. In this module, we will explain Scrum at a high level. So the question that we have here is, what is Scrum in Agile? So Scrum in Agile is a process that allows software development teams to focus on delivering business values in the shortest amount of time by rapidly and repeatedly inspecting actual working software. It focuses on accountability, teamwork, and iterative progress towards well-defined goals. Scrum provides a framework for tactically applying the Agile methodology. The Scrum framework usually deals with the fact that requirements are likely to change or most likely not known at the beginning of the project. And for us to move forward in explaining Scrum, what we will take a look at here is the Scrum framework provided to us from scrum.org. And I like to take this from Scrum framework and modify it just a little bit. I like to pull the heads out of that center circle there and move them to the to the out to the outer side to this portion of the framework, because these roles are actually involved. All of these roles are actually involved with all of these ceremonies and all of the processes that are seen here. So it's better to put these roles outside or out here so that it better represents how things are done. Inside of this circle, I like to place a little Kanban board, and as we move forward here, you'll see why I make these modifications. And again, this process is an iterative process, and this is a Scrum framework. So at a high level here, let me explain what we've got. So everything starts off with a Scrum project with this product backlog. We put everything in this product backlog that we're going to do for the project. Now, the product owner is responsible for prioritizing the items that are in this product backlog, and we simply rank those in an order of importance, with the highest items on the top and trending down in a stacked order. And these roles here, this is the development team, and they are the ones who are responsible for estimating the size of each one of these items that are in or user stories that are within the product backlog. And so this is where everything starts. We put everything in the product backlog. As we move forward in the next process here, the next step in this Scrum framework, we have something called the sprint planning session. And in this sprint planning session, all of these roles are involved in that sprint planning session. We've got the product owner, the Scrum Master, and our development team. They participate in this sprint planning session. The Scrum Master works to facilitate this session. They schedule the session and they facilitate the meeting. And the product owner is involved with this meeting to answer any questions that the development team might have. And the development team, what they do during this sprint planning session is they start with at the top of the list the items, the user stories that are in the product backlog, and they pull the user stories from the top of the product backlog and put them into the sprint backlog, indicating that this is a story that they believe that they can complete in the next upcoming sprint. Now, by definition, a sprint is anywhere between 1 week in duration or up to 4 weeks in duration. The most common duration established for a sprint is 2 weeks. And so we establish this duration at the beginning of the project. And so let's say for our project, we're going to establish the duration of our sprints to be 2 weeks. So what that means, from this point forward, it's going to be 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, on out into the future. And that 2 week period is represented in this cycle here. This is in our example, a 2 week cycle. So again, coming back to this sprint planning session, the development team pulls items from the top of the product backlog, puts them into the sprint backlog, and they only pull forward into the sprint backlog the items that they believe that they can complete in the next upcoming sprint, in our next 2 weeks. And so then once the development team has pulled those items into the sprint backlog, we pause for just a moment and we conduct we take what's called a confidence vote to ensure that everybody on the development team agrees that we can complete these items. We can get all of these items completed by the end of the sprint. And once we have consensus there from that confidence vote, then the sprint can begin. And what happens next is the various members of the development team, they will pull, like a member of the development team will pull an item from the sprint backlog into the the first stage of the Kanban board. Now we've got an example here of a Kanban board. We've got a number of different stages in this Kanban board. This is just an example. You could have different stages. You could have more. You could have less. They could be different names. But I'm using this stage in this Kanban board of design, build, test, and ultimately done. So again, a developer will pull an item from the sprint backlog and begin working on it. Basically begin doing the design. And you'll notice that this is a circle. So this is an iterative cycle here. And each day throughout the life of the sprint, the team comes together to conduct what is called a daily scrum. That daily scrum is a 15-minute meeting that's held at the same time, at the same place every day, and all of these team members are involved. But it's really the development team members. The scrum master is part of this session. They facilitate it, they schedule it. The product owner is there to listen and to and to be aware of what's going on, but it's really the developers who provide the update during this daily scrum meeting. And in this daily scrum meeting, they would answer 3 questions. What did you work on yesterday? What are you going to work on today? And do you need help in any way, or do you have any blockers or anything that's preventing you from moving forward? And each of the developers take an opportunity to answer those 3 questions. And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to move these items out of the sprint backlog into the stages of the Kanban board and move them left to right through the stages of the Kanban board, basically performing the design of that item, the build of that item, and testing that item. And ultimately, upon approval, we're wanting to move that item or that user story over to done. And again, each day we conduct that daily stand up. And then at the end of the sprint, if we've done everything right, we will have everything. The goal is to have everything move to the done stage. Hopefully we can make that happen. But regardless, when we get to the end of the sprint, the end of that 2 weeks, the next thing that we would do, the next ceremony, if you will, is what's called a sprint review. And in that sprint review, all members of the team participate in that sprint review. But in addition to the members of the team, this is a meeting which we can bring in any and all of our stakeholders. And during this sprint review, what we're producing or what we're doing is we're providing a demonstration. We are demonstrating what it is that we developed, what it is that we created over the last 2 weeks. And we are showing that completed product or the completed work to all stakeholders. And from that meeting, we will take whatever feedback they have, and you'll notice that there's a feedback loop moving here, this dotted line. We will take whatever feedback they have and put that feedback or those recommendations into our product backlog. And from there, again, our product owner is responsible for prioritizing or reprioritizing the items in our product backlog. But if we come back to our sprint review meeting after it is over, and the output again from our sprint is an increment. It is a value, the business value that we've produced during the life of that sprint, and that's our product increment, what we completed during the sprint. But after that sprint review, then the team again comes together for something called a sprint retrospective. All members of the team are there. The Scrum Master is there. And in this case, all members of the team could participate in this sprint retrospective. And during this sprint retrospective, we basically answer two questions. And the questions that we answer is, what did we do right over the last sprint? And the reason that we ask that question is because we want to incorporate those things that we did right into our next sprint and into our next sprint planning session and into our next sprint. So we do those things right again. The second question that we ask during the sprint retrospective is, what could have we done better? And we may have a whole big old list of the things that we could do better, but we really only want to prioritize that list, and we really only want to pull the top one or two or maybe three items into the next sprint. Because if we these items for that we could do better are basically introducing change into our system, and this is change for the better because we're trying to improve, but we don't want to introduce too much change into the next sprint. We just want to take them in smaller digestible chunks, and so we pull forward into our next sprint. We plan to make improvements in one, two, or maybe three different areas depending on what those changes are. And then you may have the question, well, like, what about all these other opportunities for improvement? What do we do? What do we do with those? Well, if you think about it, you're only 2 weeks away from performing this sprint retrospective again, asking that question again, and reprioritizing and putting that back into our next sprint. And this is the concept of continuous improvement. So every 2 weeks, we're constantly incrementally getting better in the way that we do things. So that's the benefit of conducting the sprint retrospective. And then the cycle starts all over again. When we come to this sprint planning ceremony or meeting, the development team again, the developers pull across the highest priority items, and we just keep cycling through again and again and again. And that, at a high level, is the Scrum framework and how it functions. As we move forward in the project lifecycle module, we will go into much more detail into each one of those ceremonies and explain in much more detail. But now let me kind of summarize things here around Scrum with this phrase. Scrum is equal to 3 roles, 6 events, and 3 artifacts. So with respect to those 3 roles, the first role that we have is the product owner. We reference the product owner. They are the voice of the customer. They set the vision or the intent for our project, and they also set the priorities in that product backlog. Our Scrum Master, they are our servant leader, taking care of the team, working out in front of the team, and focusing on continuous improvement for the team and the way the team works. And then the development team, they are the ones who have the knowledge and the capability to bring this project to life or this product to life, and they focus constantly on doing quality work, as we mentioned in the previous module. When we move to those 6 events, those 6 events are listed here. The first one, item number 1, is the sprint itself. This is that fixed duration that we establish. Again, 2 weeks is the most common duration, and it is the container for all of the other ceremonies or events that occur throughout that life of the sprint. The next item that we've got is backlog refinement. And that is also sometimes called backlog grooming. And this is where the product owner is really taking the lead here, but working with the Scrum Master, maybe even the development team, to ensure that the items that are in that product backlog are ready to go and ready to be looked at during that sprint planning session. So during that sprint planning session, that's where we create our sprint backlog. We pull those items across in our sprint backlog. Our daily Scrum, that's where we come together, same time, same place. All the team is there. And that's where we are basically doing our daily planning or our daily replanning and sharing with one another where things are at. Answering those 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to work on today? And do you need help in any way? That sprint review, that is where we deliver that or demonstrate that product increment. We can also take a look at our velocity. In other words, how much we completed in the last sprint, and capture that feedback from our stakeholders as far as from their review, from us demonstrating that what we brought to life over the last sprint. Our retrospective, that's our continuous improvement, or called Kaizen. And then with respect to the 3 artifacts, that we have is that product backlog that includes, it's built from the goal for the product, our vision and intent for that product, and it's also prioritized. The sprint backlog, we established that sprint goal. Again, within that sprint backlog, we pull across the items that we believe that we can complete in the next upcoming sprint. We establish a sprint goal. This is our known work, and it is based upon the capacity for what the team can deliver, the development team can deliver over the next sprint. And then finally, the product increment, that's our sum of our completed work that we completed over the last iteration or sprint. It's based upon the definition of done. Stop. It's based upon the definition of done, and we are ultimately providing value from what we produced. So let's talk just a moment about the benefits of Scrum. So you can see them listed here. We are able to have a quicker release of a usable product, focusing on higher quality. There's higher productivity when we leverage Scrum. It's proven that we have lower costs, and we have a greater ability to incorporate changes. That feedback loop constantly. We're taking feedback, putting those requested changes into our product backlog, incorporating those changes into our product as we're moving forward. Again, there's statistics showing that the employee morale is much higher on a Scrum project, as well as there's improved or better user satisfaction. And Scrum also provides an approach to incrementally complete complex projects. Incrementally, we're delivering something of value and continually adding value onto that complex project over time. And with that brings us to the end of module number 3, which is our Scrum overview. Up next, we'll take a look at the roles and the responsibilities of each role on the Scrum team. That will be module number 4.